Thanks to Amanda and all the panelists. We turn now for an in-depth look on financing, especially the financing for COVID-19 recovery to support women. The Women Rise for All was launched by the UN Deputy Secretary General Amina J. Mohammed in recognition of the exemplary leadership of women across the globe in response to the COVID-19 crisis. The Women Rise for All Global Advocacy Initiative seeks to elevate and connect women from all sectors. As we pool our expertise, resources, and knowledge, we can succeed in keeping the promise for resilient and sustainable recovery. Thanks to the UN Office of Partnerships for supporting this session.
Warm greetings to one and all. It is a pleasure to welcome you to this Women Rise for All Leadership Dialogue on financing a future for women. I thank the UN Global Compact for convening leaders across sectors today, and I thank the International Trade Center for their continuous strategic support. Together, we are illustrating opportunities for advancing gender equality. While women are at the front line of the COVID-19 response, keeping people and communities alive, women are also disproportionately affected by the crisis. Women are more likely than men to own vulnerable micro, small and medium-sized enterprises and to work in the informal sector. Women shoulder the burden of unpaid work and often lack access to financial assets and services. For these reasons and more, the United Nations Roadmap for Social and Economic Recovery advocates for a just and inclusive recovery, emphasizing the need for increased fiscal space and greater social protections for women. Advancing gender equality in response to the COVID-19 crisis could add $13 trillion to global domestic product by 2030. With targeted support, women-led businesses can play a major role in job creation and economic recovery, keeping households and businesses afloat. Given this immense potential, I'm inspired to see women leaders unite to identify, support, and finance women-led businesses and to protect vulnerable workers. Women Rise for All recognizes women as drivers of economic resilience beyond the pandemic and into the decade of action. I especially want to thank Arantxa González, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Spain, a friend and a true champion of women's entrepreneurship. Let's remember, together we are stronger when women rise for all. Thank you.
Deputy Secretary General, dear friends and colleagues, I'm delighted to take part in this timely event in support of the Women Rise for All initiative. Thank you, dear Amina, for your invitation and for your leadership. I cannot think of a more relevant topic at this time when we are emerging from the pandemic, determined to retake the path towards a more sustainable growth. When more women work, economies grow. Indeed, experts believe that by increasing the participation of women in the economy, the formal economy, we could drastically improve economic growth in both rich and emerging markets. There is overwhelming evidence to support it. Furthermore, studies suggest that women, compared to men, devote a larger part of the household budget to education, health, and nutrition. Societies with greater gender equality not only offer better socio-economic opportunities for women, but also tend to grow faster and more equitably. It bears repeating. This is why the government of Spain stands behind women's economic empowerment. It's a matter of principle, but also makes economic sense. Gender equality brings along wealth. There are gains in poverty reduction, in environmental sustainability, in consumer choice and innovation, and decision-making on a wider set of issues. Unfortunately, COVID-19 is quickly widening the poverty gap between men and women. 58% of women worldwide hold informal jobs. Women tend to perform considerably more household and care activities than men, about 3 times as more than men in quite a number of countries. These figures help explain why women are disproportionately affected by poverty and why they are bound to bear the brunt of every major economic crisis. Projections show that COVID-19 will push 96 million people into extreme poverty only this year. 47 million of them will be women and girls. For every 100 men living in extreme poverty, there will be 118 women, a gap that is expected to increase to 121 women by 2030. We are fighting the pandemic with resources that were once directed to the provision of basic social services. Safety nets are exhausted. In Latin America, some 18 million women and girls will lose their access to birth control methods and healthcare assistance. I dread to reflect upon the consequences of that. Even if we manage to rebound quickly, as I hope, millions of women around the world will still carry a heavy burden. Domestic violence has increased by 30% over the past year. From the start of the pandemic, Spain has been working both at home and abroad to articulate an effective, coordinated response with a transformative and sustainable approach. The decisions made today will have a long-term impact in our societies. In 2020, Spain, together with a group of UN members, tabled a UN General Assembly resolution on women, girls, and COVID, adopted on October 11th last year. The resolution underlines the central role that women must play at countering the pandemic, as well as their necessary contribution to a sustainable recovery. This framework will inform and guide our comeback to this crisis. The resolution emphasizes the need to enhance the role of women in the economy, fostering financial, technological, and digital inclusion, as well as equal pay for work of equal value and career opportunities. It calls for fiscal stimulus packages accessible to all, specifically addressing the care sector, as well as informal and non-standard forms of employment. As we keep celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Conference, Spain will continue to co-lead the Coalition for Action of the Generation Equality Forum on Economic Justice and Right. The forum will give us the chance to discuss how we can implement policies to improve the livelihood of women with better jobs and with better socio-economic conditions. At the end of the year, the World Trade Organization Ministerial Conference will be yet another opportunity to promote women's integration in international trade. We all know that women are not less capable at exporting. Instead, they often lack access to information, finance, and technology, and may need additional encouragement to overcome some initial barriers. We want to emerge out of this crisis by fostering the participation of women in society and in public affairs, by recognizing unpaid work, by shortening the pay gap. We want to engineer fiscal policies and social networks designed to empower women, countering the feminization of poverty. Let me end by underlining our commitment to the United Nations, the cornerstone of our efforts to face the pandemic. In order to reinforce the role of the organization, we need fora such as this one, where we can exchange information and best practices, present initiatives, and most of all, come together to ensure that women are taken into account. I hope that we will soon be able to meet in person to continue this discussion. In the meantime, thank you so much for the opportunity to share these few thoughts with you. All the best.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed and Your Excellency Arantxa González Laya, Minister of Foreign Affairs, European Union and Cooperation of Spain, for those inspiring and energizing words. Good afternoon and good evening, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pamela Koch Hamilton, and I am the Executive Director of the International Trade Center. ITC is the joint development agency of the UN and the World Trade Organization. We're committed to supporting small businesses in developing countries, especially women-led firms and youth entrepreneurs, to internationalize. It is my honor and pleasure to moderate this Women Rise for All leadership dialogue on financing a future for women. I'm grateful to the DSG for spearheading this initiative, to the UN Global Compact as hosts of the Target Gender Equality event, and our partners at the UN Office for Partnerships. The COVID-19 pandemic has laid bare and exacerbated existing fault lines in our economy and society. ITC's research into the impact of COVID-19 of small businesses worldwide has demonstrated the disproportionate negative consequences on women. For us, it is clear there can be no Build Back Better for COVID recovery without gender equality. In the midst of the pandemic, our well-known She Trades initiative partnered with the W20, UPS, and the International Chamber of Commerce to develop a 9-point action plan for corporations, governments, and business support organizations to build back better in support of women entrepreneurs. We have also worked with Bangladesh and several African countries to develop and roll out a COVID-19 crisis management and resilience toolkit for women-owned businesses to dampen the impact of the crisis and adapt business practices in response to our new reality. For today's discussion, we look around the world at what needs to be done in the face of COVID-19 to support women rising for all and financing a future for women. Women in 2020 held approximately $72 trillion in private wealth, a third of the world's total, according to the Boston Consulting Group. At the same time, the total number of women and girls living in extreme poverty will increase from 388 million in 2021, 388 million in 2020 to 435 million in 2021. The global community has an opportunity to redirect the focus of industry leaders and investors towards sustainable and ethical business initiatives with women's empowerment at their core. We're lucky to have with us an exceptional panel of highly accomplished women entrepreneurs who have blazed many trails and are leading efforts in their home countries and globally to ensure building back better places women's economic participation, especially through financing at the center. First, we have Ms. Rubana Huq. Ms. Huq is a businesswoman and award-winning poet, president of the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers and Exporters Association, and managing director of the multi-sector business conglomerate Mohammadi Group. Second on our panel is Ms. Kekeletso Kena. Ms. Kena is a 2020 graduate of the South African Women Creating Wealth Initiative of the Gracia Machel Trust. Her hair care and cosmetics company, K Squared, harnesses the healing power of Africa's biodiversity to create employment and entrepreneurship opportunities for rural women. And finally, we have Beata Gutman, entrepreneur, executive producer, and pioneer in impact ventures and investments. Ms. Gutman is the CEO and founder of Grasshopper, a global venture building and advisory firm responding to the need for resilient solutions to global systems and failures. So first of all, let me start with Rubana. The garment sector has created employment for millions of people, an estimated 80% of whom are women. The sector is also very export-driven and is the biggest foreign currency earner for Bangladesh, the second largest exporter of garments in the world. In your opinion, Rubana, how can corporations and market partners support suppliers and garment workers to manage the impact of COVID-19 pandemic? Over to you, Rubana.
Thank you very much, Pamela. It's a very timely question because I'm actually going through Narayanganj, one of the most populated. Have I lost you? Have I lost you?
No.
Okay, all right, sorry. So thank you very much, Pamela, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you and the rest. I must say that I'm now going through Narayanganj and I'm in a car and it's heavy traffic because it is a place where most factories are. So it's a factory area and I can see factory workers returning home as well. So it is quite an experience, but I can tell you this much, that unless corporations or brands support suppliers while they improve their sourcing practices, then only will this sector be viable. And we talk about, sustainable businesses, we talk about sustainable partnerships, but in the discourse, the critical thing that's always lacking is a sustainable sourcing practice. There is a disconnect between sourcing practices and the supply chain. And, most of the times we are absolutely helpless at the hands of the Western buyers. Unfortunately, they are our biggest support. But at the same time, we have stringent contracts, which basically have force majeure clauses. And this stops us from being at an advantageous position with COVID, which hit us so hard. We all woke up the very next morning to a lot of canceled contracts. Bangladesh faced cancellations worth $3.18 billion. And then after active negotiation, mediation, 90% of it came back. But the point is, how did it come back? Bangladesh at any point of time has a receivable of $8 billion worth of payment. Now, so we don't have our credit risk insured. That is our biggest problem. And we have unfavorable contracts. So while we talk about sustainability and while we talk big about sustainable supply chain, while we talk big about compliance, may we all remember that, it's not it's not a case of warring sides. We're all in it together. Our vision must be aligned. Buyers, suppliers, labor activists, everybody, all of us need to align and realize that in order to have an inclusive economy, we must make sure that we do our little parts ourselves, and not just end with saying that we need this from you guys. So it's not a question of a prescriptive approach. It's a question, or it's an angle of an inclusive approach, which will make us do better. So we have a standard slogan now in our association, and I always say this, and I say #GoHuman, So we must all make sure that we are going human and we are going green. Bangladesh has the highest number of green factories in the world. Yet where is the green price? There is a lot of discourse about living wages, but where is the green price? I mean, Bangladesh alone in the last 3 months has had a price cut of 4.74%. In times of pandemic, when every payment is almost deferred, and we're having renewed contracts and renewed engagements, at this point of time, slapping us down with more price competitiveness clauses, it's just insane. So we need to be very honest in our discourse, and we must say that, look, this is the base. While you talk about sustainability, while you talk about ethical sourcing and good business practices, everybody must remember we have 4.1 million workers, and for them, we pay $423 million worth of wages every month. It's a huge amount. So we must have some kind of social protection scheme for unemployment of the workers. God forbid, if another pandemic hits us, we will be helpless. Thanks to our Honorable Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, who was very kind and generous to have offered the industry brilliant stimulus packages, which kind of rescued us. If we didn't have salary support from the government for 4 months, we would have been in dire straits. So it is time for all of us to wake up and make sure that the governments, the brands, the manufacturing industry, the labor front, all of us need to be aligned. It's just not the brands. It's all of us, all in it together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rubana. I really appreciate what you've said. It really hits home. The slogan, go human, go green. It's very important. Let me turn to Kekeletso. Congratulations on finding a wonderful niche in bringing together natural cosmetic products to care for natural hair like mine, while simultaneously bringing economic opportunities for women. As we know, COVID-19 has brought significant disruption to the business environment, and at ITC, our research found that women-led companies in particular have been negatively affected by the pandemic. So what have been the greatest challenges you have faced at K-Squared? How has the company adapted during COVID-19 to find new and innovative opportunities? Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pamela, for creating this space and for giving us an opportunity to be part of this panel. I think, COVID-19 came at the time when we were already struggling as a business. And I think it just seemed to exacerbate the challenges that we were facing with failing economies and not really having access to market. So when COVID came, for us, it really highlighted the issues of the symbiotic relationships that people have with each other. I think in our country, we call it Ubuntu, where all is not well with me unless all is well with my neighbor. And so you started seeing an impact on all of our businesses. Our clients were losing jobs. We had to shut down. I didn't know how to access my clients because, we created this space where they could come in and have their treatments done. And all of a sudden, I couldn't get hold of them. And I was very, very fortunate that, even during that time, I was part of the Gracia Machel program, the WCW program, and it gave us an opportunity, it gave us a sisterhood of sorts, a support system, because that's what women need, a psychosocial support to keep them going, because women face so many challenges and biases on a day-to-day basis. So for us, over and above just having the economical challenges that come with COVID-19, the depression and everything, I really honestly felt like giving up before COVID came. When COVID came, it just literally pushed me to the edge, and I was convinced there was no way our business was going to survive. But obviously, because of the program, we had the psychosocial support. I was able to pivot the business and look into online sales, which I'd never done previously. And of course, COVID forced us to shut down. And this shutdown also allowed us the time to rethink our businesses, to see where we were and where the leaks were. So in as much as it was devastating, it also had its, points where it literally gave us time to work at our businesses and use the resources that we were getting from the program, to say, how do we plug in the leaks? Because firstly, you don't even know where the leaks are when you are running on a day-to-day basis. You're busy just trying to plug the leaks everywhere. And so when it was shut down time, we had no other alternative but to just sit back and work on the businesses, find the problems, and go online and learn to do business online. And it has given us so many opportunities for growth into the future, because now we're going into machine learning to be able to then take our systems and our business so that we can launch our franchise business and subsequently drive the demand I've been dying to have, because when we drive demand for our products, it means that we can empower more rural women by using a lot more of their raw materials. So it has its challenges, but I think it also forced us to look into the future, to look into technology and find ways to use technology to be able to build our businesses and create that seamless relationship between rural women as well as the high-tech world that we now currently live in.
Thank you so much, Kekeletu. I love that Ubuntu. I love the fact that as women, we form our tribes, and those are the things that keep us alive and keep us going. Beata, over to you. Let me start with you now and see, before it was a global trend, you had the unique role of managing the cross-section of government, corporate, multilateral, and nonprofit interests in advancing global goals. So there's a significant interest in impact investing. Last year, ITC launched a joint impact fund with CARE and She Trades to support women entrepreneurs. How do you think we can take advantage of this increased attention on responsible investing to empower women economically? Can you tell us about the new Humankind Capital Fund you have structured, and with which criteria in mind to make sure women benefit from these investments?
Thank you so much, Pamela, and thank you to the rest of the panelists as well. It's just a wonderful time to talk and explore ways that we can all work together. As you know, we have been, for those of us that have been in the development, international development and corporate responsibility, sustainability space for some time, we have been waiting for this level of global consciousness for a long time. It has, of course, come at an exceptionally devastating cost, but it is here. And we now need to channel this new energy into something that is constructive. When you take a bird's eye view at this new era that we're in, we have the gravity of the women's rights movement and the more than $70 trillion, like you said earlier, Pamela, that women specifically hold in private wealth. That is extraordinary. And I say that it's time probably to look at ways to redirect this wealth that sits in women's hands and truly find ways to put women at the center of economic development. post-COVID. We've all been talking about it for a long time. We now have, through the filter of the system, and this is hard, and I acknowledge this, is we need the collective will. We've all been talking about it for a long time, but we need to come together and we need to make it happen. And we need financial vehicles. This is where Humankind Capital comes in, and where we, through Grasshopper, realized over the years the amount of funds we've raised for both our UN partners, but also the various businesses that we work with. It is time to truly focus the financial sector in a way, the finance sector in a way, to redirect the resources that they have at their disposal to the Sustainable Development Goals, with women at its core, right? And we cannot do that without the social protections, like Rubana said, that are needed at the national level to protect women, to give them the flexibility to pursue the businesses that they want. And I speak about that from my own experience as well, right? From childcare to credit lines and so on. It is the access to capital and credit is a universal problem for all business women, as you well know at ITC. And so we need to be able to offer women this collective opportunity to come together and give them the resources that they need. And I believe that the finance sector holds a very critical role in doing so, and which is one of the main reasons why Humankind Capital was established. And we have an investor committee that is predominantly women, which we're very proud of. We'll be sharing a little bit more about that in a few weeks. And we will be investing in women, in women-owned businesses as well. It's a big criteria for us, especially women who are building their businesses with the SDGs in mind. This is something that some criteria that is very important to us. But I think also, Pamela, the fashion industry has a very big role to play here as well, as we emerge from COVID, in economic development, in a way that, like Rubana said, not only in a way to influence the supply chain, the massive supply chain that supports the industry, but the millions of women that are employed by the fashion and apparel industry is extraordinary. And if there's a way to offer financial services to those women as a means of their own corporate responsibility, that can be a game changer as well. But the masses of women that the fashion industry reaches as well is an important piece to the puzzle as well. And I think that, secondly, there is a large movement for upcycling, and there is a way to jumpstart the employment for women, especially through the upcycling business, which is an emerging trend, but one that can employ lots of women and save the environment at the same time.
Thanks so much, Beata. I really appreciate those comments. It's clear, as you said, that access to finance is one of the biggest challenges that women-owned businesses face, and we see it every day. And then you compound that with COVID and the increase in the care economy and the issues with respect to, homeschooling, childcare, etc. It really has been a devastating impact, but there are possibilities that we can explore. So let's see how we can do that. Rubana, I want to come back to you. As a businesswoman and head of a business support organization and a key voice in the media, I'd like to get your perspective on the partnerships and leadership, the CSW theme. We know that reforms at the national level, as well as partnerships across sectors, are critical to ensure women are fully represented in all spheres. And you've been a powerful voice for women's empowerment at home and abroad. So what kind of reform-minded partnership initiatives do you think we need to see more of to see more women taking their seat at the table? And if we can be mindful of time, I think we're kind of running. So if we can make it quick and tight, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
I'll be very, very quick, Pamela. I think the magic phrase or the magic hashtag is hashtag she for she. It's not just hashtag he for she. It's in order to go there, in order to collaborate, in order to rise, in order to break the ceilings, we must have hashtag she for she. A woman must be supporting a woman. That is a given, without which we will make it nowhere. No glass ceilings are ever going to be broken if we don't do she for she.
I think I could just say hallelujah. Thank you so much. You're so right. If we don't do it for ourselves, nobody's going to do it for us. Kekeletso, I want to return to you as well for a second round. So building back better also entails building back greener. And there's a growing interest in biodiversity and nature-based solutions. So what do you see as potential growth areas for K-squared services and products? You know, what tools or investment would be most helpful to you now through the COVID-19 recovery to reduce the impacts of future economic shocks?
And the green economy is really an opportunity for our country, and in particular rural women. And this is why we decided to go the high-tech route. So obviously, a lot more advancement in terms of our ability to use artificial intelligence, machine learning, to be able to scale our business is going to be critical. However, that's not going to happen if we continue to be ignored as far as the so-called missing middle, of funding is concerned, because everybody's looking at that seed funding where you're looking at, $10,000. And if you are looking for a lot more money, nobody wants to talk to you. You're either too small, too out there, and just too wishy-washy, they'd say, and so you kind of get lost in the gap. So I think for us, there needs to be a systemic approach in terms of trying to develop middle businesses that are in the middle. They're not really at seed level, and they're not really at that level where they're supposed to be. And to be able to do that, we understand that a lot of the times women don't get funding because of compliance issues. So there needs to be programs like within the Gracia Machel program and a secondary stage that maybe looks at compliance issues. How do we support women with compliance? We all know that, at least in my country, the burden of care lies with women. And so in the case where a lot more of their resources, be it time or money, goes to looking after their families, they really don't have time for administrative support and a whole lot of other things. And funders don't even look at that. So there needs to be a system that looks at women's businesses and say, how do we support this business to go from seed to actually, high growth level? And that's where we find ourselves needing that extra support to look at the compliance issues of legal, administrative issues, so that we are then able to grow to the next level. But at the rate that we are going, the way that funding models have been designed, they literally miss out the middle. And as a result, women in that growth trajectory who have the potential to create a lot more wealth find themselves stuck for years instead of growing their businesses. And that's where we find ourselves.
Thank you so much, Kekelet. So I agree with you. One of the biggest challenges is the continued traditional funding models, which don't address new issues and non-traditional areas, particularly those that women are involved in. Beta, from your work across multiple sectors, where do you see the greatest potential in advancing women's economic empowerment? And sticking with our theme of partnerships, how can the corporate community play a larger role in providing social protection in tandem with government policy, which you spoke to already?
I did. Thank you. I think I mentioned it in my earlier remarks. I do believe that the corporate community especially needs to start evolving their thinking about what it means to be a good corporate citizen. Very much in line with the evolution of citizenship over the years, right? It started as philanthropy and it moved on to volunteerism and traditional corporate responsibility programs. But companies need to begin, and this is hard. It's hard for them to look beyond the self-interest and really look at the long-term impact. It is a very difficult process for companies to go through, but it is necessary given the times that we are in. Because in order to achieve that long-term impact, you need to look beyond yourself, and the company needs to look beyond their interests to identify ways that there are long-term collaborations with governments, better use of the relationships that many have with the multilateral institutions as well. And so it's a longer conversation, certainly, but there is an evolution that needs to take place in the corporate community for sure. And I mentioned earlier, we think that there is a great opportunity in the fashion industry to move the needle, both in supply chain, as we've talked about, but in reaching millions of women with services. That's a different way of approaching their responsibility as well. So I can keep going, but I know that
we're tight for time.
Yes.
But yes, this is definitely a conversation that we could continue to have, and I think it's something we should continue to explore in terms of corporate social responsibility, because I think one of the main issues for corporate social responsibility is to recognize that their own interests are directly tied to the interests of the wider community and of the global, human capital. So if they see it that way, then it'll be easier to sell. So I think we have to wrap up now. So thank you so much. Our speakers have provided us with some thought-provoking discussion and practical solutions to financing future for women in response to COVID-19 and beyond. I'd like to take particular note of some of the main points which have really set me thinking. The first is, of course, the she for she. We're not going to get very far if we also don't support each other. It can't just be he for she, it has to be she for she, as Rubana said. And also what is critical is to look at, how do we improve sourcing practices? How do we enable sustainability in sourcing practices? How do we look at the human element of the kind of work that's being done, and ensuring that we have an inclusive, not prescriptive approach? In other words, as Rubana said, #Go Human, Go Green. We have to look at both sides and ensure that there's social protection and employment. And Kekaletso was very clear in talking about the symbiosis, the symbiotic relationship with each other, the concept of Ubuntu, or as I call it, my tribe, the sisterhood and the support system that keeps women going, and that is so important for us to continue. And importantly, recognizing that in the crisis and in the devastation, she also found opportunities, and those opportunities have led her to take a more overarching view of her business, and led to going online, entering the digital economic space and e-commerce, looking at issues that are important for women as a whole. And I think this speaks so well and so powerfully to the ability of women to be resilient and to pivot, and to be flexible and to address issues of care. And of course, we have to look at the issues of compliance. How do we help women meet some of the standards and the continually evolving standards? ITC works a lot in our T4SD hubs, and we'd like to work with you more on that. So let's see how we can follow up. And finally, Beata, when you talked about the importance of impact investing, and ensuring that we can actually utilize that $70 trillion that women are basically hold power over, to actually redirect this wealth into women-owned businesses, into empowering women, and working with maybe the fashion industry as one of the major employers of women throughout the world. So I just want to thank you all. I'd like to thank our distinguished speakers, Rubana Huck, Kekaletso Kena, and Beata Gutman, for demonstrating how women rise for all. And so it's now my pleasure to hand the floor to Angelica Fuentes, founder of MUVOP, focused on finance and financial literacy for women for the closing session of this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Women Rise for All, and all women participating today. I am optimistic that we can collectively inspire positive actions for the future to come. What we can all agree on is that the pandemic is forcing us to act fast. One of the ways to bring much needed support and relief for women quickly is through fintech. Experts believe that access to financial services and increasing financial visibility could help to make poverty obsolete. Without adequate documentation and proof of their existence, marginalized women remain invisible and unbankable by financial institutions. Without access to banking services, underbanked and unbanked people across the globe are severely limited in their ability to start businesses, to create jobs, and create opportunities for learning and education. The rise and availability of smartphones, of social networking and applications has led to a global increase in the number of people who have access to banking. Despite improvements in the number of people who are able to access financial services worldwide, women are the population disproportionately impacted by being unbanked. Women make up for more than half of the global unbanked population at 55%. Around the world, women are 9% less likely to have access to a bank account than men. There are some innovative solutions to address this problem, like the software company BankU, a platform in which I decided to invest and be an active partner that works to make the world's unbankable bankable. BankU's services help the poorest of workers and farmers in more than 40 nations, improves their existence and involvement in the supply chain by using their own blockchain technology, providing them with what we call an economic passport. Perhaps most importantly, the service has helped to economically empower women. Women are now running their own businesses and are able to borrow money with much lower interest rates as a result of becoming bankable. In terms of sustainability, blockchain has the potential to increase transparency and supply chain integrity for businesses. Our region is the fastest growing, and it's becoming one of the most fertile grounds for fintech. The combination of high rates of financial exclusion, high mobile penetration, and technological innovation represent a great opportunity for the fintech sector due to its ability to bring financial services through technology to a part of the population that remains invisible to the traditional financial services. Fintech offers opportunities to transform women's financial inclusion. Investing in women not only benefits individual empowerment, but also extends to human rights. The crisis caused by the COVID pandemic demonstrated the great challenges we have as societies, making gender inequalities more evident. We need to keep working to flatten the curve. Today, women rise for all.
Thank you, Angelica, for your insightful remarks. It's a pleasure to close today's Women Rise for All dialogue on financing a future for women. As we've heard, the global community has an opportunity to focus the attention of industry leaders and investors towards sustainable and inclusive business initiatives with equal opportunities for all. With the Sustainable Development Goals as our North Star, over the past year, the Women Rise for All initiative of the UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed has brought together exceptional women leaders to mobilize and scale up global support and political commitment to respond and recover better, to COVID-19. We look forward to seeing the Rise for All initiative grow and to hearing your contributions towards keeping the promise of the SDGs. I would like to thank all the women leaders who have joined us today, with special thanks to Her Excellency Arantxa González Laya, to Pamela Koch Hamilton, Ribana Huck, KK Letzo Kenna, Beata Gutman, Angelica Fuentes, and Lucia Brigham for organizing the event. And our deep thanks and appreciation to the driving force of Women Rise for All, the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed. Let's remember, together we are stronger when women rise for all.
Thank you so much to Deputy Secretary Amina Mohammed, Her Excellency Arantxa González Laya, Angelica Fuentes, Anne-Marie Ho, and all the amazing panelists. It is time now for us to take another short break. We encourage you again to explore the content studios. Check out the Mentorship Lounge and connect with over 3,000 attendees. Don't forget to continue the conversation on social media using our hashtag Target Gender Equality. See you right back here in 1 hour.